What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. We've got a special guest, Adrian, today.
What's up?
Also a YouTuber. I've got his channel linked down below in the description. We're doing a video on there as well. But Adrian's originally Australian.
Yep.
But been living in Sweden as well.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, on this channel, I love to compare different cultures and things. And I'm always giving the American perspective. But I kind of feel like Australians are kind of like our long lost brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
you know, you're out there, we share the same language. We have a lot of cultural similarities, but also a lot of differences as well.
Yeah.
So in this video, I want to run you through like 5 of the things that are like very hot topics that I'm always comparing on my channel with like Americans versus Swedes. And we can get that Australian perspective with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Sound good?
Cool.
All right. First, we have the one that's very interesting for people. This is about dating life. So dating life, Sweden versus Australia. What would you say are the biggest differences?
So I can just, I would just point out one pretty big difference that it wasn't that it was a shock to me, but it kind of was at the same time. And I'll explain why that was in just a moment. But basically, because I've dated a couple of girls while being here in Sweden, and they don't, like, when you're in Australia, from my experience anyway, you're dating a girl, and then after maybe, like 4 or 5 dates, it's kind of like you're just a thing, right? You're like you're like girlfriend, boyfriend. Yeah. Right? And so
do you ever have that discussion in Australia? Like, do they try to make it official, would you say?
Sometimes. Yeah. It's like the last girl I was dating that was Australian, it's like it kind of came up in the way. It's like, oh, so like, what are we? And I was like, oh, like, I guess we're like girlfriend, boyfriend. It was just it's just like, it's just like, because I think it's like in Australia, you usually have more relationships. So you're kind of like, you're like, all right, this is my girlfriend. And then, you break up and then you have another one. You're like, all right, this is my girlfriend. These relationships can literally last for like, from 2 weeks, 2 months, a year.
Okay.
And so here I realized that, they don't go into like, they don't put a label on it. Yeah. They don't go into exclusivity for a long time. And this is something I was talking about. I was with this Tinder date. And so I was actually dating a girl, right? And then I went on a Tinder date, right? Because, it wasn't like, it was like open, I guess. I mean, we weren't a thing, like, already. But I didn't know what was, like, I was just like, okay, like, I'm just like dating this chick. And then I went on this other Tinder date. And I was like, oh yeah, so like, what's the like the dating culture like here? And she was basically telling me, she was like, yeah, like, girls, guys, they just date multiple people, sleep around, and they usually date each other for like a year or something before they actually go into a relationship, or like 6 months, or like quite a long time. And I was kind of, this is where I was kind of shocked because it's like, because equality is such a big thing here, it's like if a girl sleeps around, no one's going to be like, oh, like she's a slut or a whore, right?
There's no like slut shaming.
Yeah,
People are very sexually liberated.
Right? Yeah.
Which I think is actually a really good thing.
I think it's a really good thing as well. But in other countries, and like in Australia, like girls wouldn't do that because they are afraid to be slut shamed. Right? So they wouldn't just like be openly sleeping around with multiple guys. Like they wouldn't openly be like, oh yeah, like I'm sleeping around with this guy. Like they say, for example, you're dating a girl and then she would be like, oh yeah, I'm going on another date or whatever. They're more open about it, you know? So I think that's like a massive difference I found out while being here. And I only found this out maybe like 4 months ago, because I was kind of like, okay, like what's up? It's like, it seems like everyone just wants to like just have one night stand and just sleep around, and that's cool as well. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was just kind of curious with like the dating culture, what's happening in Sweden, because it is like that in Australia, but like I said, it's like you jump into a relationship a lot quicker.
I remember when I was dating the Swedish girl in the U.S., we'd been hanging out for like 2 or 3 months and hanging out multiple times a week.
Yeah.
And I eventually was like, asked her to be my girlfriend.
Yeah.
I was like, we're hanging out all this time.
Yeah.
And she was like, what, already? Like, so serious. I'm like, we hang out like every week for 2 or 3 months. And now it's like, I've been in Sweden so long, I feel like it's like I have like commitment issues now. You know what I mean? Because it's so difficult. And I think like in Sweden, you just kind of like hang out with somebody and it could be like a year before anybody puts a label on it. Like just the other day I was having lunch with a girl and the guy that was serving us or somebody maybe came up to me and recognized me or whatever and was like, hey, is this your girlfriend? And I just kind of looked at her. I was like, maybe someday. Like, how do I answer that question?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's quite a long time, you know. I mean, I'm not out here looking for a relationship or anything like that, but like thinking about it, it is quite a long time because let's say, for example, your average lifespan is what? Maybe you last to 86.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 100. A year is still a percent, right? So it's like, I mean, yeah.
But then again, they're not exclusive with that person.
Yeah. So it's like so it's like. Maybe you're thinking, you're like, oh, so this girl's probably sleeping around with other dudes as well.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling. But everybody,
it depends. It depends. Because if you're also a guy and you're like, all right, like, I'm going to sleep around with girls as well. But then if you actually, like, share something with this girl you're dating, for, like, say, for example, you're dating and you're really vibing and you have chemistry, you know, you've been seeing each other for, like, 3 months, 6 months, and you're, like, vibing, like, that takes a while to build up, right? So it's like, even if you're going to go out and sleep with another girl, it's probably not going to be, you know, the connection isn't going to be as strong as that, you know? So I think it depends on the individual as well. But it's definitely interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Swedes, they get married later than Americans. I'm not sure what the statistics are, but like the average age, I think, for guys getting married in like the U.S. was like 30, and I think it was like 36 here.
Okay.
And Sweden's a country where people get married like extremely late, and I think it's not a very religious country, so a lot of times people have kids before they even get married. And that's another thing that's probably like not the case where you're
Like I have friends in Australia that like get married quick. Like I have friends that were getting married at like 20, you know, 21, 22. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's like it's really young.
Yeah.
That's really young. Like you don't. As a man, you don't actually, like, your brain doesn't fully mature until you're like 25.
Yeah.
Right?
You can barely drink a beer in the US.
I think, yeah. Like,
it's crazy.
So to get married and that's a really big commitment at such a young age. So, yeah, there's, you know, people in Australia, I think, get married a lot sooner here than they would in Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting with the dating life. Let's move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say work life. Work life, Australia versus in Sweden.
Okay. Yeah. I think like, that's kind of a difficult one because it's like, personally, like I do a lot of like online stuff from the computer and stuff. But I mean,
like, being an entrepreneur, you're your own boss anywhere.
But I actually think that the difference is like talking about entrepreneurship and stuff. I don't think many people in Australia are entrepreneurs or they have that entrepreneurial mindset as they do here in Sweden. I think a lot of Swedes actually have that entrepreneurial mindset. Yeah. And I think there's actually a statistic out there that says Sweden produces the most startups in the world, even more than Silicon Valley.
Well, I think I know what you're talking about. The statistic that I'm thinking of was Sweden produces the second most, or Stockholm produces the second most unicorn startups in the world.
Yeah.
So Silicon Valley, and then right after that was Stockholm. So a unicorn is a startup that gets valued at $1 billion.
Yeah.
And there's so many big ones that have come out of Stockholm. Yeah. But I so know what you mean. Like Sweden is very entrepreneurial, and maybe we're living in the capital city. Maybe it's like people in Dalarna or the north, or maybe not as I don't know.
Yeah, like, I also think that the work-life balance is a lot more greater here as opposed to Australia. And I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because of the fika tradition. you know, where you have a lot of these breaks throughout the day and you're socializing with people.
Yeah.
It could be that, but I feel like there's more work-life balance in Sweden as opposed to Australia. I feel like Australia has like a lot of, it's just like work. It's like, okay, you're working 9 to 5. It's like you just work, and then you go home and do whatnot.
You see it in all these different policies, like when it comes like paternity leave like the generous, like for example, they have vacations. If you have a vacation on a Thursday or a Tuesday, a lot of businesses will just give you the in-between day off in Sweden.
Okay.
It's called a klämdag.
Yeah.
So like we had a holiday on a Thursday like a couple weeks ago. And you get Friday off. So you get a 4-day weekend. Yeah. And that's like great because like what are you going to do like having a day off and going to work on a Friday and now people can go on a trip or do something nice and it really aids in that work-life balance. Here.
Yeah. Apparently work is more productive here in Sweden as well. Yeah. Apparently. There's been like a study. I don't know if it's every single job, but like there was like a paper I was reading. I was like, oh, like the productivity is a lot more great in Sweden based on the fact that some jobs they have less hours than others. And because they have less hours, they tend to be more productive to get the work done, right? Because it's like, for example, if you have a job to do and if you have 8 hours to do that job, you're going to stretch that 8 hours and you know, you're going to procrastinate and do whatever, right? But if you try and squeeze it into 7 hours, you'll still complete that, but you'll have an hour spare. And then you can use that hour to like, you know, see your friends, do some hobbies and stuff. Now, it does depend on like the field you're working in, because say for example, if you're working at a factory, like obviously it's like you're getting paid for the hour. But if you're working another job, let's say for example, you're working a marketing job and you need to write up some sales copy, then it's different because it's like you can get it done quicker.
I think it was Finland that was experimenting with like the 6-hour workdays. And I think like their productivity was not super much lower. So it's very interesting that I think like people will just fill up the time they have, and if you can do the same in a shorter amount of time, maybe you don't have as many fika breaks. I don't know what that would be, but I definitely get that vibe as well here. The next category we have is the social aspect of people in Sweden and Australia.
Yeah, man, that's I think that's really big difference. Really big difference. So I meet a lot of people every day. I'm probably known from like YouTube to like approach people, right? Because I did a lot of like hidden camera videos, and so I'd approach people on the street. But I actually do approach people on the street regardless if there's a camera there or not. Just because especially if you're new to a country, to a city, like you want to meet new people, right? So I approach a lot of people. I will probably meet like every week. I'll meet like 50 new people. Average, like probably a bit more, but let's just say 50 new people a week. And so the difference between like Swedes and like Australians. Swedes are very like they're closed off, they're shy.
Like, what do you want from me?
They're like, why is this person talking to me? But it's not all of them. It's I'm gonna say it's like a 50-50. Okay? It's a 50-50. As opposed to Australia, it's like, you know, 90% of people you go talk to, they'll be like, oh yeah, g'day, what's going on? How are you? You know, but here it's like 50-50. So here, it's like you can be like, oh hey, what's up? You can even just be like, oh hey, what's the time? Right? You can just be like, oh hey, do you know where this is? Just ask for direction, and you can tell straight away just based on their demeanor, their body language, their tonality, like how they look at you. You can tell straight away
if they're open to that interaction.
Exactly. Or they're thinking, oh my god, what is this stranger doing? Why is he talking to me? Okay, he wants the direction. All right, I'll tell him the direction, so he just goes away. You can tell straight away, right? But you can go up to someone who's more open and say that exact same thing, and you'll be able to tell. They're like, oh yeah, they're like, this is exciting, a new person. So That's what I think. The biggest difference is Swedes are more closed off and more shy.
So it's more like a percentage of the people that are receptive to just meeting somebody new in a public
Exactly.
place.
And it's not a bad thing or anything. There's nothing wrong with being like shy or reserved or closed off.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. Like it's just the way you were born and raised, right? It's the environment you're raised in, the people you're exposed to.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not their fault. It's not a bad thing or anything. It's just that's just a massive difference that I realized.
I would say though, to add to that and put a positive spin on it, like if you do need help with something, like pretty much any Swede will like do their best to actually help you.
Yeah.
So if you do like want to get directions or something like that. They're gonna be like, it's almost like better like if you have a reason. Oh, he has a like legit reason for talking to me. He's not just like chatting to me for like whatever.
But on top of that, as long as you go into it like, because it really depends on how you go into it as well. If you go into it and you're just like, you have that good energy, like most of the time you're gonna get good energy back. So like most of the time actually, like a lot of the time I would get like really good like feedback and like people are smiling and really friendly. So I do like Swedes, you know, they're cool.
It's very it's super interesting. All right. Continue with the social vibes a little bit further now. Let's talk about the party scene. So one difference I can say is like in Sweden, people bring all their own booze to the parties. Right? If I host a party in America, a lot of times the host will like provide a bunch of alcohol for everyone. And in Sweden, everybody goes to Systembolaget at the liquor store and they all bring their own booze. And everybody, like you go to a party and there's like 20 Systembolaget bags in the refrigerator with everybody's own booze. And nobody's really like sharing. I mean, that's the first thing that I think of like as a big difference. But I don't know how that is.
I think it's kind of similar. So it's like in Australia, like we'll also bring our own booze because I've been to America as well, party a lot, and they usually provide the alcohol. The host, gets
it's also alcohol. A lot cheaper.
In Australia, it's kind of similar. It's like you bring a six pack of beer or whatever, and you get a group of friends and you just go party out. Like you can be at a, I'd say like beach, but like obviously it really depends. I'm thinking of like Byron Bay vibes where it's like in Byron Bay, it's just like total. It's like it's a really good like chill vibes, and it's like you just get a six pack with your mates and you just hit up the beach and you're just partying with a bunch of strangers you just meet, right? I feel like the parties are more like
a little bit more closed off, I guess.
Here they are, But like in Australia, it's like they're like open and you can just like go from one to the next. Obviously, it's a bit different if it's at houses. But also that works actually really well. Like say for example, like there's been a couple of times where I'd be in Melbourne and I'd be staying in an apartment complex and people would be throwing a party and me and my mate were like, oh, there's a party, let's check it out. And so we just knock and they're like, yeah, come in, and like you can literally just party with a bunch of strangers like that. And I feel like here it maybe wouldn't pass off.
Just knock on a random. This looks like a fun thing's happening. They'll be like,
So I feel like the parties are more like closed within their own groups. And I think it comes to like with Swedes in general, they usually stick to their own social groups. Right. So it's like when they're having parties, it's usually own social groups, or like friends of friends.
Exactly. Just want to give a quick shout out. When I was in Varberg this last weekend, I was at a party with some friends, and we were like a little bit older, like my age, 25 and up. And one of the guys that came later, like when he came into the building, there was like a bunch of like shirtless high schoolers behind him, like he just graduated high school. He was like, these guys aren't with me, they just needed to get in the building, and they were all like super hyped and like swinging their shirts around, like these guys, and they recognized me sitting on the couch
from your YouTube.
From YouTube. They're like, dude, you gotta come up and check our party. And I was like, look at my it's like, all right, I'll go up for 1 minute. I went up and it was just like the craziest like high school graduation party.
That's so funny because yesterday actually one of the girls that we ended up partying with, she saw my videos and she's like, oh my god, I saw your videos. Yeah. Let's go party.
That's great.
And now she's snapping me and she's like, hey, let's go party next weekend. Let's do like a big party. Yeah. You know, so
I guess to meet people and go to parties, just step one, start a YouTube channel.
yeah, so
makes it a lot easier to meet.
Literally.
Oh, exactly. All right, to round this one out, let's finish it off with hobbies. Like, what kind of interests would you say are like very different? Obviously, like maybe surfing's not as big of a thing in Sweden. Actually, you can surf, but not very many people do it here.
Yeah. I think like hobbies, when it comes to Australia, you've got like some sports, right? You've got like rugby, which is very Australian. Yeah. You've got cricket, which is very Australian. Surfing. Now obviously not everyone's into that stuff, but I think like as Australians, like because Australia is like a country where it has some very beautiful places. It has some beautiful hikes. You know, you have the coast, so it's like I think one of the big ones is like traveling around Australia and like going to all these different places, these hikes, these rainforests. Like for example, I did a road trip with one of my exes, and we went from like the north of the east coast right to the bottom, so from Cairns to Melbourne, and you know we'd go through this place, Daintree Rainforest, super beautiful, and then a couple of hikes like I think Blue Mountain, it's a national park near Sydney. Okay. So I think it's like, and then
are people outdoorsy, would you say?
Yeah, I think they're more out. They're more into like outdoor things, and that comes from probably the fact that Australia has some really good weather, and it has, you know, greater weather as opposed to Sweden. It's like Sweden, you know, you only have like maybe 3 months of good weather out of the year.
But when we get those good months, everyone's goes outside. You have to be outside. And I would say even despite the bad weather, like there's this saying in Sweden, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes. Don't believe in that personally. I think there is such a thing as bad weather, but a lot of people just have this mindset of like, we're going to go out. And like, I think Swedish people are super outdoorsy. Like, we get a fresh snowfall, and then they're just they plow all the snow line, and then people are riding their bikes to work the next day after. It's like, what the heck? Like I wouldn't do that. But
yeah. It's like I would almost agree as well, because it's like I have winter clothes, and it's like even sometimes when I was wearing the winter clothes, it's still freezing, dude. Like I'm wearing like boots, I'm wearing like 2 woolly socks, and my toes are still freezing. It's like, you know,
it's true. But like ice sports and activities like ice skating, hockey, all these sorts of things.
That's super different. Like I mean, you can do that in Australia, but it's not like a big thing. You know, here it's like it's really nice. Like, you know, it's a massive thing. You know, during the winter when I was just walking around, you see these ice rinks open up and people just skating, and it's super cool. Because like for me, like I never saw any of that. Like, you know, I've been to an ice rink, but it's like it's not something where it's like a one-off thing where it's like you have one ice rink in a city, right? But then here, like in Stockholm, you just walk, you see one, and then maybe you walk, you see another. So that's a pretty big difference. Like the ice sort of hobbies, like ice skating and ice hockey.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we covered a lot in this video. I think we could go on and talk about these topics for like hours and hours, but we wanted to keep it under 30 minutes at least. So leave some comments down below. What was the most interesting to you guys? I'm very curious to see that, and be sure to check out our video on Adrian's channel as well.
So we just did a video on basically 5 things that you should know before you move to Sweden, because as you know, Stefan's been here for almost 4 years. And I would say I've lived here because I've been here for quite a long time now, since basically Corona, so like since last summer. So make sure to check that out as well.
Great tips. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
All right. See you guys in the next one.